Alright guys, what is going on? So this video I want to talk about the next wave of Fortune aircraft. So this year I expect another wave of Fortunes to make their appearance in the game. I think we're in for some new airframes, and some follow-on variants of the existing Fortunes in the game will of course be coming as well. I also expect Gaijin to introduce active radar missiles on a wider level. I know we already have the AIM-54 Phoenix, and it's been around a while, so at least in theory players know how to use them by now, and they should also know how to counter an active radar guided missile by now. But I digress, I can probably talk about that in another video. So on to jets. So I'm going to do new airframes up front, and then I'll talk about the follow-on variants of aircraft that we already have in the game. So the first one I expect, because Gaijin kind of let this one slip already in a Q&A, but I expect the JAS-39 Gripen to come this year. A Swedish multi-role fighter. It's going to be a pretty good jet for the game. I'd love to see this little single-engine beast in the game. I think the Gripen C was thrown out as the one that is confirmed to be coming to the game. I mean, I could be wrong, but if that's the case, we're talking about the RB99, which is the Swedish designation for the AMRAAM. But if they're going to back it up to the Gripen A, we could just see sky flashes on that, along with some sidewinders. So next up here is of course the F-15 Eagle. I'm expecting the F-15A and probably the J as well to probably make an appearance this year. Of course, the F-15 will cover Japan, the USA, and Israel. Very, very powerful aircraft. Can't wait for it to come to the game. Of course, we're going to get missiles like the AIM-7P Sparrow, probably AIM-9Ms, and if like I said before, if Gaijin goes the active radar route, we should see AMRAAMs on this. Also Python 3 missiles for Israel. And for the Japanese variants, they're going to have their separate Mitsubishi developed missiles, the AAM-3 and 5, which are infrared missiles, probably not the 5, it's a little bit more advanced. But there's also the air-to-air missile 4, which is another Mitsubishi developed active radar homing missile, kind of like the AMRAAM. And I can already hear the inhalers from the Russian mains having an asthma attack right now. As I mentioned, the F-15A Eagle coming to the game. I know it's a very powerful jet, but we're still talking about 1970s technology here. The F-15A Eagle came into service in 1976. So because of the asthma attacks that'll probably ensue, I think Gaijin should probably introduce the Su-27 flanker at the same time for Russia, and probably the J-11 at the same time for China. But you could just give China the Su-27 as well. They purchased about 78 of those, and because China liked it so much, they really didn't have anything that could match that capability, they agreed to purchase a license to build 200 flankers in China designated the J-11. Then something kind of sus happened in 2004 when China canceled the remaining contract after assembling 100 locally built J-11s. They mumbled something about the Su-27 no longer met its defense needs, and then they began assembling J-11Bs without any Russian involvement. The J-11Bs have about 90% Chinese parts, so basically they reverse engineered the flankers and essentially dodged paying for a full $2.5 billion contract that they originally signed on to, pissing off the Russians in the process. So in short, the original J-11 was just simply an Su-27 manufactured in China with a license, while the J-11B is actually kind of a bootleg version that introduced Chinese hardware. So Gaijin has some choices here. They could just give China Su-27 SKs, or J-11s, or J-11Bs a little bit later on. But the most important, of course, for both of these jets will be the missiles they carry. So we're talking PL-8s, PL-11s, PL-12s, which is the active radar guided missiles for the Chinese flankers. For the Russian flankers, of course, we're talking R-73s, R-27ERs, R-27ETs, and the R-77. So that leads me to the next fighter I'd like to see this year, and hopefully it is in the pipeline, and that's the J-10A Vigorous Dragon by Ching-Kuo. So this is a Chinese developed indigenous fighter, multi-role, single engine, delta wing design. Now I did say this was indigenously developed, but this thing supposedly, allegedly, borrows heavy design cues from the Israeli developed Lavi project. And if you look at them side by side, they definitely look related. But anyway, so this fighter does pack some really good hardware, as a helmet mounted sight, a really good radar set, can carry PL-8s, the PL-10 infrared missile. I think that might be a little bit too advanced for the J-10A variant though. And of course we have the PL-11s and the PL-12s that it could carry. So a strong fighter for China that isn't an F-16, something from the West, something that is kind of homegrown to a point, would be nice to see. Alright, so next up is the Aerospace Industrial Development Corporation FCK-1A. It's an indigenously developed Taiwanese multi-role fighter. Now it's not as well known as other fighters, but I still think it's pretty interesting. I'd like to see it in the game. A little bit of backstory on this is Taiwan had to develop this fighter back in the day when they couldn't get access to the F-16 and also the F-20 Tigershark, which is his own story. It competed against the F-16 back in the day, but they couldn't get access to either of those fighters due to political pressure, so they ended up developing their own fighter. But later on they did get access to the F-16s and also to Mirage 2000s, so the buy and the build run was a little bit limited for the FCK-1. They built about 130 of those FCK-1As. Now this fighter's been around since 1989, so it's not exactly cutting edge, but it does have a fair amount of advanced technological features. Performance is roughly equivalent to early model F-18s and F-16s. In weapons, but not in raw flight performance, the FCK-1 has significantly less thrust than either of those fighters. The FCK-1 has a pretty competitive pulse Doppler radar set and some indigenously developed air-to-air weapons. The Sky Sword 1 infrared missile, it also carries the Sky Sword 2 active radar guided missile, and it can also carry AM-9 sidewinders. And since I just bought it up, I'm hoping that the F-20 Tigershark will make an appearance this year. Has a pretty jaded development history. It's sad this fighter was never adopted because it was very advanced and it did a lot of things better than the early F-16A that it competed against. I did a deep dive video on this a while back. You can click right here if you want to check that out for more details. Watch this video first, but you can check that out later. But I hope this jet comes sooner rather than later. Gaijin has a habit of missing the optimal window to introduce jets, kind of like the Mirage F1. When it finally came, it really had missed its time. So I hope they don't do that to the Tigershark. As the F-20 competed directly against the F-16, it had a pretty advanced radar set for the day, the APG-67, which coincidentally ended up in the Taiwanese FCK-1 aircraft. But the F-20 Tigershark could also do something that the F-16 couldn't do out of the box. It could fire BVR missiles, which included the M7 Sparrow, and it also could fire the M20 AMRAAM, which was in development at the time, and also it carried sidewinders on the wingtips. So another fighter I want to bring up, and I really hope this one's on a short list in the game because it was a direct competitor to the F-16, and that is the F-18 Hornet. So this twin-engine multi-role fighter has lots of flexibility, really good in the air-to-air role, and also really good in the air-to-ground role. Specifically, I'm hoping that Gaijin will be a little bit creative when they bring the Hornet to the game because it has the potential to cover down on lots of different nations. For example, if they bring the Finnish F-18C to the game, of course it could go into the Swedish tech tree. If we bring the Swiss F-18Cs into the game, I'm thinking, maybe it could go to Germany. I know a lot of people might have a problem with that, but it'll ultimately be up to Gaijin, just like they did with the F-16J. And of course, the US will have F-18s galore covering the Navy and the Marine Corps, and there's a chance for the British tree to get F-18s. Considering Canada and Australia operate the F-18, those are Commonwealth nations. It kind of makes sense to me. Maybe Gaijin will do it, who knows, but they'll definitely make a business decision on it. For Italy, they could get the Spanish Air Force EF-18, but I'm not so sure about that one. Gaijin could have gave with the same logic the Italian tech tree the Spanish Air Force Mirage F1, but they didn't do that, even though the Italian aviation tech tree was struggling for planes. They didn't do it, so maybe that one won't happen. So a new jet that I'd like to see but probably isn't going to happen is the JF-17 Thunder, the Block 1 specifically. The JF-17 was a joint project between Pakistan and China's Ching-Kuo Aircraft Corporation. It was designed to replace multiple aging Pakistani Air Force aircraft such as the Mirage 3 and the F-7. So this fighter is a multi-role fighter. It's highly capable. I use this plane a lot in DCS, that's why I bring it up so often. It features some extremely modern systems such as a KLJ-7 advanced pulse Doppler radar and a missile approach warning system and lots of other stuff. This is a really far off choice though. Don't know if we'd see that one this year, but I would be surprised if it came into the game and pretty hyped. Okay, so that was all the new stuff. So now I'm going to talk about some variants of existing aircraft in the game. I firmly expect more advanced versions of the F-16 to come. The Block 20 F-16A specifically and the F-16 AMMLU. So this upgrades the APG-66 radar. They get AM-9Ms and they also get AMRAAM capability. There's lots of versions of the Viper out there. If you want more detail on the Viper, I did a deep dive video on all of the variants that you can click on here after you watch this. So if you want to see more details about all of them, you can check that out here. I don't want Gaijin to skip ahead too far in the Vipers because there's so many that we could have, each one of them giving capabilities that would actually be modeled well in the game. I'm expecting the MiG-29 the present one to either get its R-73 missiles or a new MiG-29, the MiG-29S 9.13S, which gives it an upgraded radar. It's more maneuverable due to a new flight control system. It could carry more payload, and like I said, you know, that one would also have the R-73s, maybe R-27 ETs, but no active radar homing missiles though, unless they go way up to a MiG-29 SE, the 9.13 SE, which gave it R-77 compatibility. Next up is the Mirage 2000-5. I'm hoping France can finally get a 12.0 fighter this year. You know, if they don't bring anything else besides the Gripen and the Mirage 2000-5, that's fine with me. But the Dash 5 is going to be more than a modest upgrade to the S5 already in the game. The Dash 5 has the RDY radar, which has multi-targeting capability, which can make this jet pretty overpowered when it's coupled with its Mica missiles, which come in infrared flavor and active radar homing flavor. In addition, can also carry Magic 2 missiles, so you can see how the Mirage 2000-5 could be pretty deadly. But, you know, just in case it's too spicy, it also carries the Super 530 missile, or Sky Flashes, which would be a severe downgrade for an aircraft like this. But at any rate, if the jet does come, at least the French tech tree would get it, and the Chinese tech tree could get it as well by way of Taiwan. And last up, and this jet really could be coming anytime, and that's the F-14B or the Tomcat. So the F-14B, of course, will bring the AM-54C, AM-7Ps, and AM-9Ms by then, hopefully. It also has some pretty good air-to-ground capability, so I would love to see the F-14B. I also made a video on this, on all of the F-14s actually that could come to the game, and I'll link that here. You can click on that. Alright, so those are my predictions for what might be coming this year. I hope at least, you know, a few of these happen. Would love it if all of them did, but that would make me pretty greedy. But anyway, hope you guys liked the video. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you in the future. Peace.